Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah and day 12 of the Christmas Craft Countdown, where I'm sharing 20 Christmas themed Cricut projects to make over 20 days. Today's project are these greetings cards and they have a little bit of a surprise. Can you tell what it is? Well, you can pull off the decoration on top and then underneath you've still got a lovely card. All the little sticky bits just come straight off so it doesn't damage the card at all. And then you have a decoration which you can hang up on your Christmas tree. It's a lovely way to add a gift and a card all in one. These should fit in a standard 5x7 inch envelope, but because they are quite thick, you may find a presentation box is better. I've got some separate tutorials on how to make handmade envelopes and presentation boxes, which I'll drop in the description of this video. If you were following along with my Halloween craft countdown a couple of months ago, these are very similar to one of the projects from there. But in that tutorial, instead of making decorations, I showed you how you can cut magnetic sheets to the size of these little toppers instead. So if you'd rather make magnets rather than tree decorations, I'll also add the link to the Halloween project underneath this video so that you can follow that one if you'd prefer to do those. But for now, I am going to show you how to make these cards with removable Christmas tree decorations. Let's get started. The files for this project are free for the next 24 hours. Here's how to download them. Register a free ticket for the Christmas Craft Countdown at craftwithsarah.com/Christmas24. After registering, you'll get an email which contains a link to the schedule page for the countdown. Visit the schedule page to find and download today's files. Each download is only available for free for 24 hours after it goes live. If you've missed some, check out the Instant Access Bundle at craftwithsarah.com/Christmas24 bundle, which gives immediate and ongoing access to all of the files from the Christmas Craft Countdown, plus lots of extra bonus designs. The download comes in a zip folder. You need to unzip this before uploading the SVG files into Cricut Design Space. Once you've downloaded and unzipped the folder, upload 3 SVG files into Cricut Design Space. If you're not sure how to do that, visit the schedule page for the Christmas Craft Countdown, and within there, look for the Foundation Learning section. One of the links in there is to a separate tutorial and video on how to upload SVGs into Cricut Design Space. Each of the images you can see on my screen at the moment comes as a separate SVG file, so you'll need to upload them all one at a time if you want to use them all. The reason that there are 2 of the Christmas puddings and only 1 bell is because I wanted one Christmas pudding without a hook on it to go on the card, and then another one with a hook so that I can add some ribbon through it to put it on my Christmas tree. Being as this one is a bell, it kind of made sense on the actual illustration to have a hook as part of it for both of those options. So there's only one version of the bell and both of them have the hole in the top. You can use these however you want to, but I'm going to put them on a greetings card. So let's start creating that. First, I'll go into shapes and choose a rectangle. My card will be 5x7 inches, which means I need to make this 7 inches tall and 10 inches wide, as it will get folded in half to make my 5x7 inch card. So I can click the padlock above the width and height box to open it out, type in 10 inches for the width and 7 for the height. And I'm going to cut this in the same green as the holly on the Christmas pudding. So you can go under the colour box and then in material colours, choose the same green. If you have a scoring wheel or scoring stylus for your Cricut, then it's nice to add a score line down the middle of here so you know exactly where to fold it to put it in half. Under shapes again, choose a score line and then size it to the height of your card. So in my case, that is 7 inches. Drag a box around the score line and the rectangle and go align, centre to put the line in the middle. And then, with those layers still selected, press the Attach button at the bottom of the Layers panel. Attach is what tells the Cricut that we want it to do the scoring down the middle of the rectangle. When I'm making cards, I like to build up some extra layers on the front before sticking on my topper, just to add a little bit more visual interest. So I'll choose another square. This time I'm going to make it a little smaller than my card front. I'll go for 4.5 inches wide and 6.5 inches tall. So I've taken ½ inch off of each side. And then I'll make it a slightly darker green. And then to go in the middle of this, I'm going to cut one more rectangle, and this time I'll cut it from a Christmas patterned paper or a scrapbook paper, something with a little bit of extra pizzazz over using a plain bit of cardstock. So let's duplicate this rectangle to make a copy, and then I'll take just 1/4 inch off each side, so 4.25 by 6.25, and then to remind myself when I'm cutting this out that I want this bit to be done from coloured card, I'm going to make it a really kind of obvious, unusual colour that wouldn't naturally be part of the actual card that I'm making. So I'm going for a bright pink. That way when I see this come up when I'm cutting out all the pieces, I'll remember, ooh, bright pink, that was going to be pattern paper, and I'll go and look for something suitable. I'm not a fan of this new way of Design Space having this little window here that it doesn't disappear when you click off of it. So I'm just going to click Shapes again to remove it. Now I can add my Christmas puddings on the top. First, make sure each of them is the same size if you're going to be using both of them, which mine are. They're both 3.71 by 3.828. Drag a box around both of those and go align, center to put one on top of the other, and then arrange, bring to front to move it in front of the rest of my card. And then put it on, and actually that is a pretty good size. I might make it a little bigger. And I'll keep it positioned near the top of the card so that I can add a greeting or sentiment underneath. And I'll just move, oh, that was the wrong one. I want to move the one with the hanging part on, just down underneath the card. So I'll just hit the arrow keys on my keyboard. You can press the Shift key when you're moving with the arrow keys to help move it a little bit quicker. Alright, so that's my Christmas pudding card done. I'm going to just pause this video and do exactly the same thing for my bell card. Here's my bell card. I've made the base card the same colour as the lightest yellow in the bell, and then my border layer here is the same red as the bow. I just need to click on this now and press duplicate to make a copy so that I've got one that I can leave on my greetings card and one that I can make as the removable ornament. I've done my top bit in blue because once again I'll use a patterned Christmassy paper for this one, so I've made it a really obvious colour so that I remember that when I'm cutting it out. Both our cards have some rather large spaces at the bottom, so I think we'd better fill those in. I'll show you 2 different ways that you can add sentiments to the bottom of the cards. We'll start with the bell, I think. I'm going to go into Images and type out Merry Christmas and have a little look at what comes. Because I'm cutting this from cardstock, I want one where all of the letters, or at least a good majority of them, are going to be touching each other, so it's not going to cut each letter individually for me to try and stick on. And also some nice thick letters, so it'll be easy to cut from cardstock. That would be a nice one to choose. And also, I quite like this one. It's got a few bits that are still separate. The A and the S isn't connected to anything, and also the dot on the I. But apart from that, it's all looking good. And I think I am going to use this one, so I'll delete that one. Get rid of that. And make this a nice size to go on the front of my card with the bell. I'm going to give this a border behind it so that I can add some foam squares to the back of the border layer to raise the sentiment out from the card a little bit so that it doesn't blend in with the background too much. To do that, select the sentiment and then press the offset button along the top. This will add a border, and you can see when you're doing it, it gives a faint blue line around the edge to show how big that border is going to be. That's a little too big for my liking. I'll go a bit smaller, maybe still a teeny bit smaller than that. I quite like that one, so I'll press apply. That's now made a new layer in the layers panel, which I'll change to my yellow. Now I don't really like the fact at the moment that this has got lots of gaps in it, so I'm going to fill those in. To do that, press the contour button on the bottom right of the layers panel and then hide all contours. Close out of the window, and you can see that's filled in all those gaps for me. So now that'll be a nice solid bit of card I can add my foam squares to, and then I'll glue the Merry Christmas on top. Just going to make sure this is the same exact colour as the eyes. I think it's a bit of a darker black at the minute. So we can look in here. Oh, actually, it might be the same. To double check, we'll press Colour Sync. This separates everything out by colour, and actually, yes, I can see it is exactly the right shade, so that is good. If it wasn't, you can click and drag to make it the same colour. So this is one way of doing a sentiment. Let's take a look at another way. And in this second way, instead of sticking the text on top of a shape, I'm going to cut the text out of a rectangle and then use the colour underneath to show through the gaps to fill in the words. For this, you can either go to text and then type out your sentiment. I'll just put Christmas for now to show you. And then go into the fonts drop down, type stencil, and choose any of these stencil fonts. So a stencil font is one where letters like A's and R's and O's, Q's, those kind of letters that have little bits in the middle, it puts little lines through them so that when it's cut out from cardstock, you don't lose the middle of those letters. That's not a very readable font at all. You can't really tell it says Christmas. All right, I'm going to delete that. The other way you can find stencil-based images to use is to go back into Images. And this time I'll search for Merry Christmas Stencil. And this should give us Merry Christmas images that have already been formatted to have that stencil effect, and they'll be nice and pretty for us. I'm going to go straight away and just use that very first one. So you can see all my letters like this R got a gap in it, which is going to work beautifully. It's way too big at the minute though. Make it smaller. And this one will be for my Christmas pudding card. Zoom in a little. Then I'm going to grab a rectangle or a square from the shapes and make this so that it's just bigger than my text. Drag it below so it's easier to see. There, and then I want this to be white. And then I'll make an offset layer of this, of my rectangle. Go into offset. This time I want to choose the pointed corner option because I want it to look like a larger rectangle. And that's probably a good size. I'm going to have to make the whole thing a bit smaller, I think. And press apply. And then that can be the same dark green as this one here. This is all looking a bit big at the minute. So I'll click one of them in the layers panel, press shift on my keyboard and choose those rectangles. Just make the whole thing a little bit smaller. At the moment, this Merry Christmas is going to cut as a separate layer, and I actually want all the letters to cut out of this rectangle. First, we'll get the positioning all nice and neat. So I'll select those 3 layers again, my Merry Christmas and the rectangles, and press Align, Center to make sure that text is exactly in the middle. Then I'll choose my text and press Shift and choose just the white rectangle this time. And then go Combine and Subtract. That will cut the text out of my rectangle. So if I drag this over, you can see it's now see-through or transparent where all of those letters are showing. So what it will do is it will cut them out of my white, then cut the rectangle around the edge. So I'll end up with this lovely rectangular sentiment box to go on the front of the card. And that is my 2 cards all ready in Design Space. Gonna save it now so that I don't lose any of those details. So save. And let's call it Test Ornament Cards. Give it a save. When you're ready to cut everything out, press Make over on the top right to separate out the colours. You can change the paper size in the drop downs here, and then if you want to, you can click and drag to move things about. I've only got this one little bit that it thinks is going to need another sheet of card. I'm wondering if I can possibly fit it all on one. If you want to try that, make sure you've got more than one sheet of the same colour, so all of this is white. Then you can click the three little dots and move object. Choose the mat that's the same colour and press confirm to move it. And now I'm going to see, I think it's going to be pretty tough. I'm going to see if I can fit this on one sheet of card, because I'd much rather use one if I can. I don't think it's going to go because you can't have anything overlapping. Otherwise it won't cut properly. Just look how close that is. Maybe if I rotated it. I think that's a little bit worse. If I make those... I always spend way too long figuring this out. Kind of see it as a challenge. And I like to win at challenges. Oh, I've done it. Yeah, okay, that's worked. So now nothing is overlapping. And now that's all going to cut on one sheet of white instead of needing two. So what I'm going to do now is just go through all my other colours and change the paper size and get that looking all right. I'm going to have to be really, really careful that I don't lose the eye on that Christmas as it's very small. So I'll be extra careful with that one. Don't worry if you do move things around and then end up with empty sheets like this. Once you press continue to connect to your Cricut, all the empty sheets will disappear. So go ahead, get all your sheets looking exactly as you want them to, and then press continue, get everything cut from cardstock, and then we'll see how to put together our cute little Christmas greeting cards. Here are all the pieces of my Christmas pudding card cut out. I'll show you how to put this one together first, and then I'll do the bell one after that. We'll start with the base card. I've got my score line down the middle, so I can just fold this straight in half. Oops, try not to drop it like I just did. There we go, get a nice crisp fold. You could go down it with a brayer tool or a scraper tool if you want to get an even crisper fold. Here's my brayer tool, just straight down there. And then I've got my darker green bit to go on top of that, and then my patterned paper. Both of these will be glued on top. I'm using Bearly Art Glue for this project, but I also like Collall, and I like these two glues because they don't bend or wrinkle the card like some glues can do. I'll be adding a little bit of dimension to some areas of the card and also the decorations to go on top, and for that I'm using foam squares. These are from Dot & Dab, but any will do. Alright, so take my darker rectangle first, glue this onto my card. It goes right in the middle. Got a little bit of a fluffy edge there where it didn't quite cut very well. There we go. Neaten that up. Try and get a nice even border with straight edges all the way around. There we are. And then the patterned paper will go in the middle. Next, we'll put together the Christmas pudding that's going on the card, and that's the one without the hook at the top. The very bottom bit is the one that's all white, and then on top of that, we've got the black piece with the little circles cut out. And this will be glued on top. It lines up exactly around the edges, which makes it nice and easy to get it in line. Then next is the darker brown piece, but before we glue this onto the black, take the little tongue bit, which looks like this, turn your brown bit upside down, add a little bit of glue all the way around the edge of the mouth like that. And then turn the tongue bit upside down and line it up so that the gap in the tongue goes all the way around. And it's easier to see if you've got it lined up by turning it around this way so it's now facing the correct way. Make sure you don't have any bits of pink around the top or the side showing. It should just be the little tongue in the middle. And then we can glue this on top of the black. There. Next, it's the lighter coloured brown. Again, we're gluing this. The decorations that are going on the card front are going to stay fairly flat because they're going to have the ornaments over the top. So I don't want to add foam squares to this one, otherwise the ornament won't sit nicely on the top. But I will add some foam squares to the ornament to give that some dimension. So next, I've got the white icing to go on top. Then the green holly leaves. And finally the berries. So this is the one that will go on the card. Now I'll put together the one that will be used as the ornament. I've already glued all of these pieces together. That's exactly the same as the one we've just done. So white at the bottom, then black, then glue the tongue to the back of the dark brown, glue on the dark brown, and then the light brown. But for the rest of them, I'll add some foam squares. I've got the icing next. I'll just check I've got it the right way round, which I do. Turn that upside down. Add some foam squares to the back. You could still glue it all if you want to, it doesn't matter. It will look lovely either way. But I thought it'd be nice to have a bit of dimension and pop on the actual Christmas tree decoration. Getting it all lined up before I actually push it down to stick. That's looking good. And then the holly leaves I will glue, and then I will use foam squares for the berries. There's those. And then, it's really hard to pick up small pieces. Couple more bits of foam square. And there, looking super lovely. Now I've got some ribbon. Cut a little bit of that. Fold the ribbon in half, like that. Then you've got a loop at the end. Thread the loop through the hole, pull it through. Then thread the two longer pieces through that loop, pull it tight, and then that will seal it onto the ornament. And then you can either leave it loose or you can tie it into a bow. I'm going to attempt this. Make sure you've got a nice loop, because if it's going on a Christmas tree, it might be going on a fairly thick branch. So give it a good size loop in there. I am rubbish at tying bows, so I'm just going to do it in a knot and leave it at that and cut off the edges. If you can tie nice bows, absolutely do that. It will look much prettier. And that's my Christmas tree decoration done. Next up, I've got my Merry Christmas sentiment that I cut out the letters on. This can be glued to the darker rectangle. This green didn't like cutting very well. It's got kind of fuzzy edges on it. Just try and neaten them up. Okay, let's glue this on. Straight in the middle. And that's the pieces of my card done. Time to bring it all together. Okay, let's place that on there, and also my card version of the Christmas pudding. Get it lined up so you're happy with where that's positioned. And then I will glue this one. And I'm not going to add my glue to the very top bit because I will try and poke the edge of that ribbon behind just to neaten it up a little bit on the card. My glue's not going to work if I've still got the pin in the top. So I'll glue the tops of the holly, but then leave a little gap at the top here without any glue. And maybe could have gone a bit further than that actually. More like 2/3 of the way down. But I'm sure it'll be fine. Glue that on the card. And then you can glue or foam square this bit on. It's a shame that most of my pattern is now covered up on my patterned paper. But never mind, you can still see some of them down there. Alright, so to attach the Christmas tree decoration, I am going to use some blue tack. I like using this because it comes off really easily and it doesn't leave a mark, so it's not going to damage your card when the decoration is removed. Another thing you can use are these little kind of sticky dots that you can buy for crafting. It says they're permanent, but they're not. You can still take it off. It's like almost little bits of sort of plastic or resin or something. So it's sticky. It will stick it on, but you should still be able to take it off. You could also use some little pieces of Velcro that you put onto here, or maybe some foam squares if your foam squares aren't too tacky. Just something that's going to allow you to attach this but still have it removable for whoever you give it to. So I'll get my blue tack, and this is actually white blue tack. If you've not had this before, it's kind of a putty, but it's a little bit sticky. So I'm going to get a few circles of this. You can make it whatever shape or size you want. And put a few on here. Try not to make it too thick if you're going to be posting your card, otherwise it will just make your card more expensive and thicker to post. I'll put 3 on. Then my ornament can go over the top. Push it down. And now that is stuck on there. It's not going anywhere. I've got the ribbon, which looks a little messy. You can either leave it to make it really obvious to someone that this is removable, or you can try and tuck it in behind the original bit where we left the hole in the glue. So you could tuck it in there, or you could just take the ornament off, bring the ribbon down, and then it's going to kind of stick on there. Because if you hide it completely, the person you give the card to might not realise that it is an ornament that they can remove. So you may want to leave a little loop like that. There. That is looking beautiful. And then I can write my message in there, and it simply pulls off, and then you can take the blue tack off. It won't damage anything, and then the card will still look beautiful on your shelf once the decorations are on the tree. That was how to make the Christmas pudding card. Now I'll show you how to do the bell. Here are all the pieces for my bell card, and it is going to go together in a very similar way to the Christmas pudding. So we've got our 2 copies. I've already glued together the one that's going to go on the card, so all of these pieces are glued together, but I'll show you how to put together the other ones so that you can see how to do it and which order all the pieces go in. I've used a gold card for this, which is nice and shiny and Christmassy. Now I've got a gold pattern paper here with some bells on. So I've already done those bits, and I've already glued my Merry Christmas onto its backing. And yes, of course, I did lose the dot on the eye, so I've actually coloured it in with a black Sharpie instead, and you can't really tell. I think it looks fine. All right, let's stick this remaining bell together, starting with the white, and then we've got the black piece to go on top. Just like with the Christmas pudding, it goes right on top, all those edges line up. Then next will be the solid gold bit, but before we do that, turn it upside down. We've got another tongue piece. This time it just goes along the bottom, like that, a little semicircle. And line that up. Turn it over to check. Oops, I just smudged that really badly. Got glue everywhere now. Check that you just get that little bit of tongue poking out. My glue does dry clear, so I'm not worrying too much about that. Then this can be glued on top of here. I feel like at this point it looks a little bit creepy, but when the next bit is glued on, which is the outline of the bell, then it all kind of suddenly seems to look cute instead of weird. There are some thin lines on this bit, so be careful when adding your glue. And now it looks like a bell instead of just a weird blob. Next is the bow, and if you were doing this to go on the card version, then you would glue both of these red bits. But for the one that will actually be the Christmas tree decoration, I'll glue them instead. No, I won't. I will foam square them instead. Should have think a word and then say something completely different to what you meant to say. At least I realised. Stick that on. And I'll add some more on that second piece. I think that's upside down. That's better. And that's the Christmas decoration version of my bell. Got some more ribbon. I'm going to put this on in exactly the same way. So fold it in half to get a loop. Put that through the hole. Pull it through. And then tuck your two ends in and pull it tight. That's now nice and secure. And then I'll do a knot, because I cannot tie bows. I also find knots difficult. Just working with ribbon or thread in general is not my favourite thing. There we go. Just cutting these ends to make it a little bit neater. There we go. Right, now the card can go together. Once again, line up your bits where you want them to go. There and there. Glue on the top one. If you want to tuck your ribbon in, leave a gap of glue. But I thought it actually worked quite nicely just tucked behind the ornament level of the decoration. So I'm not going to worry about that this time. Put that in place. And then this time for the sentiment, I think it'll look better with some foam squares. I said the right word that time. Merry Christmas. And just like I did before, let's add some blue tack so that I can stick this on. If you weren't sure if your recipient was going to realise that the ornament was removable, then you could always just write it in the card. Give them some instructions. Okay, I use one more little bit to hold that in place there. A little bit showing, just so that you definitely know that it is an ornament. Tack that in place. And that's my second card. So now I have both my Christmas pudding and my bell Christmas cards with removable ornament decorations on the front. I hope you enjoyed making these cards with me. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Christmas crafts and card making ideas. I hope to see you tomorrow for day 13 of the Christmas Craft Countdown. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Bye!